Hello and welcome to Project Torchlight, the podcast where we explore the power and impact of art and creativity through the lens of people's stories. I'm your host, Rebecca Barrow, and today we have with us the amazing Alex Shipman, a filmmaker and documentarian with a wealth of experience across film and TV, who also directs and produces her own projects, including feature-length films Bam Bam and P-Rock, which we will discuss in the duration of this episode. Alex also teaches at the BFI Film Academy and founded Silver Night Entertainment, an educational production company that runs short courses and creates work placements for young people looking to get into the film industry. So join us as we go behind the scenes in the film industry, exploring the realities of it and also the craft of filmmaking itself. So without further ado, let's get into it. Hello and welcome to another episode of Project Torchlight. Thank you so much for joining us today. Today, I am so excited to welcome a very special guest, Alex Shipman.
Hello.
Hello, Alex. Alex, please could you tell us a bit about yourself and what do you do?
So I'm a camera operator and DOP in film and TV, transitioning a little bit more into content, which is like YouTube and short docs and things like that. I also do a little bit of teaching media skills to students, and primarily I love to make films, so I also direct and produce my own content and features and stuff.
It's so fascinating. You've done so much, and I'd really like to know a bit more about what your journey into the film industry was.
Yeah, so I left school at 16 and I started doing my A-levels from home, and then I got a job at Harrods, which I was super excited about. I really wanted a job at that point, and I think I handed in CVs to the Disney shop and all these different places.
That's
and
so cute.
Everyone was saying no, and I actually think I entered Harrods as a joke, and I was like, there's no way I'm going to get a job at Harrods, and I ended up getting a job there, and it was great. Because I just think I really wanted to join the adult world, and I was quite excited about that. But then I think I realised that I kind of needed to be around some kids, some people my own age. So I was 16 at the time, and I started looking at clubs to join and stuff, and that's when I found the BFI Film Academy. I think that made me realise that I did actually quite like filmmaking and stuff. Or it was just more that it didn't seem like a career or anything. I genuinely joined that place just to meet some people my own age.
Yeah.
And then I went there and I absolutely loved the kind of filmmaking process and stuff. And it was really cool as well because the teachers and everything were working within the film industry. So they weren't lesson plan kind of trained teachers in any way, which might sound not great, but actually I think it's much better because they just knew their craft.
Yeah.
So they just sort of taught it in that way, rather than some teacher training kind of way.
It wasn't inorganic in a
Yeah.
way. It was I guess my understanding from what you're saying is that it was very much sort of led by what was needed rather than a curriculum, this is what we're doing today. It's just going with the flow of what the students need. Yeah,
exactly. It very much felt like we were making a film with them rather than they were just teaching us how to make a film. It was a collaboration with your teacher.
That's so cool.
Yeah, so it was really nice to sort of do that, and I got on really well with the tutors there and the people that ran the course, and I think I decided I want to go into this industry. I think they did a good balance of teaching us the creative process of making a film, but also the jobs that you can actually get within that.
So you had more of an awareness of what was available in the industry.
Yeah.
I always find it so fascinating to hear about how people find their passions.
Yeah.
Because I feel a lot of the times it's just not linear.
Yeah.
People fall into it by accident or sort of there's just a stroke of serendipity or looking back, they kind of realise actually it's been there all along.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Like I used to make films all the time. Like you used to come around and we'd make films. And, like you know, I had lots of friends that I'd like force into make films with, and
not forcing.
Yeah,
not forcing.
No, it did feel like forcing, to be honest. I was a little bit like, right, it's not, you know, you're gonna come around, you're gonna act in my movie, and that was it. All right, cool,
The
go.
choreography's all planned.
Yeah, all right, cool, it's done. Bye now. I need to go and edit.
That's
this.
all I needed you for.
I've got to edit the movie now, of course. So, yeah, so it was quite funny. It has always been there in a way, but yeah, it just didn't feel like a career. And like I do feel like when I do the teaching, actually, I find it really interesting that like the students are so aware of filmmaking and like the different roles and what they want to do in it already. And I just remember just thinking it just didn't exist. Like movies just appeared on the TV. That's just what I looked like, that there was a load of people behind them that made them. And I find that quite interesting, like, because that just wasn't a thing back then, at least for me.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, like it had always been there. So it was quite cool to then go on this course and sort of realise that you could have a career in it as well.
Yeah.
Like it was cool that you found out so many people made these. So there's like hundreds of people, and again it like made you more aware. Like I started watching the credits on films more and things, because it's like obviously there was like this long list of people, but like I was out the cinema. I was like, I'm off. Like I need the toilet. So I didn't bother watching them. But like obviously now, even now actually, because sometimes it's like I have friends that work on them. So me and Joe, my partner, will just stay right until the end of the credits just to like see everyone that worked on it and stuff, because it's
nice.
like you know they all put the work in as well. So yeah, it's quite nice in that way. And then yeah, I thought about going to uni, and I did. I got the loan and everything, and I went, and I was a little bit like, oh, I don't think this is going to work for me. Like it just all seemed it's a lot different than what you originally said you were going to do. Like we weren't going to like make a film until the last year, and you know, and it was, and I was kind of like starting to get contacts for work from the tutors on Film Academy, and I was like, I think I'd just rather not be here.
And you'd already made a film by that point, right?
I'd made a short film, exactly. Yeah. So I was like, I've already made a film in like a series of weekends. I was like, what do you mean I can't make a film until I've done 2 years on your course? I was like, that's ridiculous. So yeah, I ended up like paying back all the loan and then just leaving the course, and then managed to start getting work as like a runner and stuff.
So what was the moment for you that you decided like this is definitely the career that I want to go into?
What was the moment? I think so. One of my tutors' films that I worked on, it was called Dawn of the Deaf, and it was a sign language zombie film.
Wow.
And it was really cool. There was like people that were signing there, and I got to learn to sign a bit, and I was like a runner on the set, helping like every department, and everyone was so lovely on that film, and I just felt like I felt that real camaraderie that I think I was like, I think this is what I really want to do. I like that there's so many people working together for something they're like really passionate about. And I think that was the moment of like, we had like 100 extras. We had this guy talking about talking in sign language on there. I'd learned how to speak to him a little bit through it in order to bring him on set.
That's amazing.
And then all of a sudden, like the sonic wave goes out, and that's what turns everyone into zombies. So only the deaf people aren't zombies, and that's what the film is. And I remember just being on this set with all these like 100 extras, just all pretending to be zombies. Like, and I was just like, this is ridiculous, but this is also so great. Like, so I feel like that was like one of the moments that I really realised that I wanted to do it. And then probably another one was actually one of my first jobs was on Birds of a Feather, which is this ITV sitcom, and I was there totally for free. Like I was there like as work experience, and I just remember everyone on that being so nice and like so, you know, and it felt really like if you had not having a great day, like there'd be someone there to pick you up. And I remember I was like so naive to everything and like what you have to do and be prepared for. And we were shooting outside all day. And then it started raining, and I had absolutely no waterproof clothing. And obviously all of the film industry people are so prepared for like every form of weather when we're sitting outside. So I was like, they all had spares, and I remember I got like a rain jacket from like one of the camera guys, and then like a pair of rain trousers from like one of the costume people, and I was just like, oh, all these people were just handing me waterproof things that I could put on. And I remember being
That's
like, oh,
so sweet.
Yeah, I remember just thinking it was really nice, and everyone came up to me at the end of the job and said I did really well considering I didn't know anything. And I was like, thank you.
That's good to hear.
Yeah. So I just felt like, I was like, oh, this is like a cool kind of, I think it was the camaraderie that I really
like the community.
Yeah. exactly is what I liked about it.
That's so lovely.
Yeah.
And I know that you, from previous conversations, ended up going into BTS, behind the scenes. Can you kind of explain to the audience and to me what that means? and what drew you towards behind the scenes?
Yeah, so I think well, initially I didn't know what behind the scenes was. So I was applying for a traineeship, and within the traineeship, it did have some other roles. It had like be a camera trainee and be this and a sound trainee and all this kind of stuff. And then it said it'd be a behind the scenes trainee, and I was like, well, I tried Googling it, and then Google was just like, oh, it's just people that aren't in front of camera. And I was like, okay, but I was like, all the other things aren't in front of camera as well, so they've not called them that. So I was like, so I sort of just applied to it and tried. I was like, should I ask what it is? But then I was like, maybe then that won't look good on my application. I'm like, what is this role? Like, before I applied to it still. Yeah, whatever it is, I'd love to do it. Like, so yeah, I think I managed to sort of work out that it was something to do with like making of things and applied to it, and then managed to get it. And that was on Star Wars Episode 9. So I ended up being the BTS trainee in that. And it used to be called EPK, and it still is, and that stands for Electronic Press Kit. And it's all just the marketing and publicity materials basically to sell a movie. And then behind the scenes is the kind of more documentary based making of the film, which would be on like the second disc of a DVD. But you know, now it's sort of on YouTube and TikTok and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, it's all the materials. So you watch them, you film them, make the film, like the actors on set, as well as the sets being built, costume, all that kind of thing. So yeah.
What would you say is the most memorable or like coolest behind the scenes thing that you've kind of been involved in?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's probably there's individual events like on each kind of film I've been on, which has been pretty crazy. I remember one that was like the animatronics from Star Wars, because a lot of the aliens were animatronics instead of CG characters, and that was pretty crazy because it was like an uncanny valley, like it was like having a CG character but like physically in front of you.
What's an animatronic? Sorry.
So it's like a puppet, but like with metal. Like, how would you describe an animatronic? It's a puppet that has like gizmos. That's not right. What is it? It's like, so he has a little thing in his hands and he goes like that, and then the face moves. That's like what it is, and it's like lots of metal bits in the face, and then they like twizzle a bunch of things.
So the animatronic operators, like. They're like
puppeteering.
Do they have like a controller or something?
Yeah, it's kind of like a games controller.
Oh, like a games console type thing.
And then they're moving things on that, and then the face is moving, like they're puppeteering it. Oh. But it's like a bunch of like Arduinos and like electronic things that are making the face move.
Is it kind of like a robot?
Yeah, kind of like a robot. Yeah.
Okay.
So that's like what an animatronic is. It's like a more technical version of a puppet.
And so the aliens were animatronics.
Yeah.
Okay.
So like, and I, as part of that, got to do a lot of the filming of them, building them and testing them and stuff. And then when they're in front of you, it's literally like watching an alien, but like move like its whole mouth is moving in time with everything that people were saying.
That's
like
so like,
yeah,
I can't imagine that.
It was really trippy. Kind of, like you're looking at it and I was like, that doesn't look real. But I was like, it's right there and I can touch it. So that was pretty cool. And then I think like, you know, big explosion day is always quite fun when there's like lots of things like cars flipping and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, I can't think of anything else. But yeah, there's a lot of interesting things that you get to see. Yeah. I think overall, though, it's really fascinating to see a film from beginning to end, like the full process. And I get to see more than anybody else does. Because even like when...
working behind the scenes.
Yeah, like, you know, the camera person and all that kind of thing. Well, not more than anyone else does, but like a head of department will get to see a lot of the stuff that I get to see, but as someone who isn't a head of department,
you get to see more than most.
Yeah, exactly. So that's quite cool that I get to see the costumes being made and, you know, the sets being built, and there'll be people on sets and other departments on the film that will never get to see any of that, and I get to see all of it, which is quite cool. Yeah.
And you mentioned that you really enjoyed the filmmaking process. What aspects of the filmmaking process do you enjoy? I mean, talking about behind the scenes, there's a big storytelling aspect in that you are getting to almost not represent the story, but kind of craft how it's perceived. Almost. Like how, like, what's your approach to that, and how do you find it?
Yeah, I mean, it's you kind of like, sometimes you're given the script, sometimes you're not. I'm also hired by a vendor. So a vendor is like a separate production company that the big production company hires. So like Warner Brothers will hire a vendor, and then the vendor will hire me. So they sort of dictate a little bit about what I do and what I should cover and things like that. But there's definitely things on set where like you see something, you're like, oh, that's quite interesting that someone's doing that or doing this, and then I'll go over and like try and see if there's like a way I can film it so you could sort of like make a little story out of it or something. I remember one I was quite proud of on one film. It was a Spanish director, and I was looking at the sets and the shop names of everything on this set they'd built, and I was like, oh, I think they're all Spanish names. And I googled them. I was like, oh, they're all Spanish footballers. I was like, I wonder if he asked for that. So I went up and asked him the question on camera, and he said yeah, and he went out and pointed them all out and things. So
That's
it's like
so cool.
So again, it's like you manage to sort of figure out little things that might be like little interesting stories that can be used in a behind the scenes documentary.
And that's just so like raw and authentic as well.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, it depends really, because some films I'm there every day and you're like embedded in the production, so you're there every day, and then some days you're just there every now and then. So it's more, it depends. Some movies want that kind of real handcrafted, we're making a film about the film. Some of them just want some like more stylish stuff to help them market the film. So it sort of depends on what the vendor wants and things like that. But I definitely like to go in as like a bit more of a fly on the wall, kind of calm presence. Some BTS people are a little bit more like going around high-fiving everyone and, you know, like trying to, you know, which I'm quite not the personality for. But so yeah, I kind of just like are there and sort of try to be a quiet presence and just get whatever I feel like is interesting or that my vendor might want. So yeah,
that's cool. And I know you spent quite a few years, or you still are, like working in the film industry. What are two kind of, if I said what are two things that you've learned about the industry that are not really known to most of the public, what would you say?
I would say that, like, you know, you see the actors and you see the director and things like that, but a film is very much like a sum of all the parts and the people that make it. It's such a collaborative process on so many levels that it is, you know, there's just so much work put in to put that kind of thing on the screen for people to watch and things. So I think, yeah, there's a real like huge kind of push from lots of different people in order to make a film kind of possible and on a screen and things. But and also probably secondly that like maybe I'll do two positives and then maybe a third one that's like slightly negative. So
duality is important.
Yeah, exactly.
Give me the honesty.
Yeah, I mean, and secondly, I feel like that there are a lot of ways that you can make a film.
Yeah.
So I think a lot of people think that as well. They think of Marvel and they think of the big movies, but there are also a lot of incredibly artistic films that are made in really different ways to those movies. Like, very different kind of filmmaking techniques, different styles. You know, as much as they say it's about the camaraderie, there are also films that are really interesting because they've only been made by one person and you just get that one perspective. So I think it's like there is actually film is so broad in the way that you can make it and the way that you view it and all this kind of thing. So that cinema is a lot more than the Hollywood movies that a lot of people may just know of. And then maybe thirdly is that, like, you know, as fun and amazing as film is, there is also some difficulties to it. Like, there's a lot of really long hours. There's a lot of, like, you know, the crew's not really being looked after and things like that. So it's sort of, like, hard to kind of, you know, sometimes when you talk to people about, and they're like, oh, but you're, like, on Star Wars. I was like, yeah, but, like, you know, well, Star Wars was okay, but, like, you know, there are the films like, oh, you're in this amazing film. And it's like, well, yeah, but there's still, like, a lot of hard things that we have to work through and things in order to be on that. So, yeah.
What kind of things were difficult?
The hours can be really difficult. So you can do 12, 14-hour days without a lunch break, 6 days a week.
Wow. That's a lot on your body.
Yeah, and sort of working through that can be really hard. And then also the freelance nature of it. So you're kind of like always fighting for the next job. And if you take a break, then, you know, whoever gets hired on that job instead of you could just be hired from then onwards. So, you know, there's this thing of like working really hard to get the job, then working really hard on the job, and then kicking yourself the moment you're not working. It's like it's sort of the cycle of being a freelancer, and really having to then work on breaking that cycle so you do enjoy your breaks and you don't kick yourself if someone doesn't ask you again. You know, it's not because they don't like you, it's just like timings just haven't worked out, you know, all that kind of stuff you have to really deal with. And just how high stress it is. Like, you know, maybe this is contradictory to everything I've just said, but it's so silly what we do. It really shouldn't be this stressful. Like, it's like, you know, as much as I love it and I take it so seriously, I'm also like, yeah, but it's like, it's a bunch of people that are pretending to be zombies. It's like, we all shouldn't be this stressed about it. You know, like, I know that time is money and, you know, when things go wrong, it has a ripple effect, but it's like, we're also not saving lives. Like, it's like, everything is okay. Like, we're all okay. And it is quite funny, like, watching people just get, like, so stressed about things being the wrong shade of red or, like, you know, and you're just like, if we all kind of just worked together and like maybe squashed some of our like initial ideas and what things should have been and adapt, like we could all kind of work through this in a less stressful way and then be more time efficient, and then maybe we can all go home a bit earlier, you know. It's like also what
we could like have time for lunch.
Yeah, exactly. Or we can have time for lunch, you know. It's like a little bit of that sometimes, and I think that's what I struggle with more and more now is kind of the high stakes for such silly things. Like when you're on a set. Yeah.
No, I totally, well, I say I understand. I mean, obviously I haven't been through it.
Yeah.
But from what you've said, I understand what you're saying. It does, yeah, I can imagine how that would definitely take its toll in the long term too. But I feel like although films are everywhere, like not many people are talking about what happens within the actual industry.
Yeah.
So it's interesting to hear the perspective of somebody who's worked in the industry and experienced that too. You mentioned that, like, as I said, you love the process of filmmaking, and I feel like that's a really good segue to start talking about the films that you've made. And so you're a filmmaker as well, and you've made some documentaries. Before I ask you about them though, I want to know what inspires you.
What, to make films? I think I'm particularly inspired to go down the filmmaking route as opposed to any other art form of like writing or painting or anything like that, because I think of myself as a very artistic person, but like I think I said when I became interested in camera, I didn't realize I was so technically minded. And, you know, I'm not like amazingly technically minded and I'm like a scientist, but like, you know, I didn't realize that I had like a love of the technical aspects of things. And I think that's why like filmmaking is such a perfect art form for me, is because it really marries that like artistic side with something a little bit more technical and things. And like being dyslexic, like writing is just really difficult for me. I think I'd get bored with painting. I was just like, not to, you know, painting's great, but like I would definitely like, you know, I think there's something moving, or it's moving
so
image.
dynamic.
Yeah, exactly. It's I was like,
it's like literally moving.
Yeah, paintings are very static. But yeah, like, yeah, it's more dynamic. Like there's just more going on with it and it's constantly evolving. And I love the adaptive nature of film. Like I think it's something that's so interesting about it. Is I love when things go wrong and you have to figure out a new way of doing them, and I think that's what actually births more interesting ideas rather than trying to fight that process. So I think that's what kind of really drew me towards that kind of art form for making things. And again, the kind of collaborative nature of it, I think a lot of my films sort of do center a little bit around community and what I like and things. And I think the fact that filmmaking is such a communal thing, and then I like films about community, I think that's probably also another aspect of why I got drawn to it.
And so you've made 2 feature length. I know you've done other stuff too, but you've done lots of other things. But 2 feature length documentaries, Bam Bam and P-Rock. Can you tell us a little bit more about those 2 documentaries and what kind of compelled you to tell those stories?
So I think firstly they're both about my parents. So one's about my mum and one's more about my dad, although the one with my dad has a few other aspects to it, but yeah, I think initially what made me make Bam Bam about my mum, who's a boxer, was I was going to like filmmaking networking events and stuff, and people, well actually there's a lot of like people who work in the film industry that have parents in the film industry. So normally a comment is like, oh, you know, does your parents work in this or something like that? And I said, no, actually my mum's a boxer. And then I slowly learned that that's not normal and, when I was telling it to people. And then I started like writing down the questions that people used to ask me about her and things like that. And then I made a little short film about it, just basically answering all those questions. And then it did really well in festivals, like youth film festivals. So I got to go to like America with it and like all these different cool places and festivals and things. And then I was just like, I think actually it was one of my tutors from Film Academy. He made a feature when he was 19. And I was like, oh, okay, well, I'll just do that. And,
you were 19 when you started.
Yeah,
right?
I was 19 when I started doing it. And I was like, it was just because it didn't really, I mean, nobody makes a feature film really when they're 19, at least not back then. I think weirdly it's becoming a bigger thing now that young people are making feature lengths. Like it was always that you do like a few years of making shorts and you make a feature. But I think because he did it, I was like, oh, that's quite inspiring. I was like, well, I could just do that. I was like, there's a lot of stuff that, you know, I made the short film about my mum and there's still people had so many questions after of other things to do with it. So I was like, okay, so there's a lot more to this story. So I could just make a feature film out of it. So that's what I started doing. Just filming her training, all that kind of stuff. And then over 4 years, but finally finishing it, and we filmed a fight, and that was very cool. Like I had like all my friends came along and helped me film it and all this kind of thing. And it was just a really like fun process of, it was a very fun process of shooting it. It was incredibly stressful editing. Like I just had like,
especially like 4 years. 4 years of footage. That you're just like...
And it was like, and all the years before that as well, because all the archive footage of like her fighting.
There's a lot of archive footage in it as well.
Yeah, so it was like going through all of that and stuff and digitizing it all and things. That's hard.
I don't want to give any spoilers because these are like this and like they're all definitely worth a watch.
Yeah.
So I don't want to give any spoilers, but one thing that I really, really loved was that there were just so many layers. Like a lot of it was, I got a sense that it was like kind of about overcoming as well, and like overcoming fears and that kind of thing. Like it feels so relatable because it's so human. Yeah. Like, I mean, your mum's great. Yeah. I love her anyway. But like, it is just so raw and human, and the way that you've captured that, I think, especially because like, you know, obviously it's being filmed, people know they're being filmed, but still it's so raw and human. So I think, how did you sort of approach trying to capture that footage in such an authentic way for the documentary?
Yeah, so I mean, it was interesting because people were like, oh, it's your mum, you know, you've already got a relationship with her, which obviously I do, but like she doesn't have a relationship with the camera, and like that took like a lot of work, like getting her like comfortable in front of it. Like I used to do sessions where I would just chat to her and I'd put a camera there, and none of that was used in the film whatsoever, but it was just like getting her used to a camera.
Interesting.
Yeah, so it was like really like working our way up to getting like we did like 3 different master interviews, with each one getting a bit longer, instead of just normally with a documentary like that you do one master interview, and
it's a master interview just like the kind of common thread throughout it.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. It's meant to basically just set up the entire film, and then you can cut to that at any point to explain things. So you normally do it at the end when you kind of have the full kind of story, and they're normally like 4 or 5 hours. They're quite long.
Wow. My goodness.
Because you cut them down, you leave room to like chat and have gaps and breaks and things like that. So but for this we did like a one hour one, and then like 6 months passed, so I actually did them sort of gradually rather than doing like a proper master interview through the whole thing. So yeah, working, and also like because she's training, like she would obviously like get quite nervous about me being there for that and things, and I remember she got like nervous about like music and all this kind of thing. So it's quite interesting in a way that even though I had a relationship with her, like you have to really work on things that you'd have to work on with anyone, I think, in order to get her comfortable in front of the camera. So yeah, there was definitely aspects like that. Like on the night, we were all quite at the final fight, we were all quite hidden, the camera operators, so then she didn't really see it. And yeah, that was quite interesting. But I think I think for me, like through both of the films actually, with Bam Bam and P-Rock, they are about what the story, the linear story is. So obviously the linear story of Bam Bam is like she trains for a fight, she has a fight. Like that's kind of it. But like for me, it is more like the psychology behind it and like the human aspects of the story that I find the most interesting. And I think that's why that just sort of comes out in the work, because in general, like when I watch documentaries and stuff, if I don't feel like I understand the character and I'm just watching the thing they're doing, I'm less interested. Like, so I think that's why that comes out more in my films. Work, is because that's what I like within films and things, is really understanding. Like, it was quite interesting, me and Joe watched a disaster movie last night, and Joe, my partner, and I was just talking about how like I struggle with disaster movies because I don't feel like I know the characters to care what happens to them. and like, where if it's a disaster movie where I'm really invested in the characters before the disaster happens, then I would probably be more engaged with it afterwards. And I think that's just something that's always going to be prevalent, is really like understanding people. And I do think humour is, I do like, as much as like my films aren't comedies really in any way, I feel like humor really helps you get to know someone, because definitely. It endears you to them. So like, and
it gives you, it's like almost a window into their personality as well.
Exactly. Like there's a fart joke in Bam Bam. Like I feel like that's very reminiscent of like my mum and stuff. I was like, that has to go in. And you know, so there's things like that. And comedy can be so difficult in film because comedy is so much about editing and timing and things. So even in documentary, where things are happening in real time and they're funny, you still have to edit them in a way.
It's like one of those things where you're like, oh, you had to be there.
Yeah, exactly.
But it's like representing that on camera, when it's like, oh, you had to be there, but like trying to recreate that environment, I guess must be quite difficult.
Yeah, so I think I remember we edited like different bits timing wise in Bam Bam to get things a little bit like more lighthearted and in aspects and things. But yeah, it's definitely something, like I've done a comedy before, and that, like, I remember we were all laughing on set while we were filming it, and then I watched it and I was like, oh, it's not that funny. It's just like, and it's like, it's all down to editing and timing and things, so you really have to work on those aspects.
You just wouldn't even really, it's like one of those things that you don't really think about. It's like, unless you are looking out for it. Like, now that I know that, I'm like, yeah, actually it makes so much sense that the editing of the timing would have to be so important for the humour to kind of shine through. But yeah, you just don't really think about it.
No.
But yeah.
But yeah, with Bam Bam, so it was just a whole long process really. And obviously again, like I'd never made a feature, and none of my friends had ever made it. Like nobody I knew apart from proper adults had made a feature at that point. So I was just like muddling through it, like barely being able to, and like we had so many technical issues because the film is so long and the files are so big, like none of our computers could do it, so I had to edit it in chunks and then put it together, and like it was a lot of like, that's also why it took so long to make it and things, but you know, it sort of came out of it, and I think you know, it's a film I'm very proud of at the end. And I was saying just before this that like I had no clue what it was when I finished it. I'd been looking at it for so long and like editing it and re-editing it, and I was like, I don't know if it's any good, but it's finished. I was like, well, now actually like a few years have passed since I finished it, and I watched it again and I was like, it's not bad.
It's really good. I told you before, I got so emotional at the end.
It's so funny. It's people who have got emotional, and it's like, obviously sometimes I don't know if it's because a lot of people that I know have watched it and know me and know my mum, but there has been people that didn't know anything about us that kind of like got it, which is nice.
But I think it's one of those things where, like you were saying about being invested in a character or a person, I feel like your mum, I mean, as I said, I love her anyway, but like in the documentary, like she is really framed as someone to root for. Like she just gives off this really genuine energy that makes you like really want to root for her and really want her to do well and like be successful and achieving what she set out to achieve. So yeah, and again, to capture that is a really special thing. And then there's P-Rock. Can you explain a bit more about P-Rock, just the context behind it as well?
So it's basically P-Rock TV was a Sky channel from the early 2000s that was like pirate radio but for music videos on TV. So they sort of went under the radar and then went on to Sky and showed the music videos that all the other channels wouldn't show. And it was my dad and two other guys that basically started it together and started putting it through, and it had this huge movement within the punk rock scene in the UK. It really like built built the community up there, or it connected people, I would say, is because it was just before YouTube. Like MySpace was just about around, but like there wasn't really a way of discovering music like there is now. So this channel kind of helped these bands get to really like rural places and stuff that would have never really have found their music maybe. And then, it's a documentary about kind of the building of the channel and then why it went away, and looking at the impact that it kind of had around that time. And again, it's very much like I think the two themes that I really loved about that, the story in general, even like if it wasn't my dad involved and it was a story I'd just seen, was the kind of like just trying something, even if you have no clue how to do it.
That's what I took away from it too.
Just do it. Like it's the worst that can happen is it will fail, but at least you've done it. Like and that's
and then you will have no regrets as well.
And then again, it's like this channel, like not a failure, but like could have been seen as a failure due to the things that happened that I go into the doc, but that things aren't a failure if people loved them, even if they didn't go to the trajectory you thought that they ever would. Like as long as it connected with someone, then it was a positive thing, and that's kind of what I loved about it as well.
Did it end up being what you expected it to be when you set out?
No, so I would say actually, like, I obviously knew the just the P-Rock side of it, but we didn't really know about the impact on everybody else and the people that watched it and loved it. And I did loads of pre-interviews for that. So I pre-interviewed just on Zoom, not non-recorded, just to get
with the same people that were in the documentary.
Yeah, same people, but then like loads more that weren't in the doc.
Okay.
In order to get a real like sense, like they were basically like research interviews. To get a real sense of what it was, and it was through that I realised how impactful it was on the fans and the bands. And I think you never truly knew. I mean, I think the guys behind P-Rock, including my dad, kind of knew the impact it had on the bands because they got feedback about selling tickets and all this kind of thing. But I don't think they ever truly knew the fans that watched the channel, that like made friends through it and stuff.
That's something that really gripped me because in the documentary, I know your dad says they made P-Rock as a force for good. And it spotlighted bands, like you said, that wouldn't necessarily have been able to go on to MTV or that kind of thing because they weren't like huge bands. But the thing that gripped me was just, and it's something I guess we take it for granted now with social media, that it's so easy to share things. But then back in the early 2000s it really wasn't. But again, without like really giving spoilers, but just the fact that it built a community, yes, but also inspired people because they kind of saw people that might be at a similar stage in their journey just spotlighted, being on TV and that kind of thing, and made people feel like they can do it too. And like that is a really inspiring thing to see as well.
And I think that's the thing, is it's like even now with like social media and stuff, you see influencers, and there used to be that feeling with influencers that, they're like me, but they just filmed themselves, where I think everything has gone to a trajectory of being so shiny and so like presented in a way that like starts to feel, for lack of a better word, like inauthentic, where like there's like seeing like a bunch of kids that genuinely look like kids filming things on really crap cameras, but like making really good songs, that you do want to listen to. Like you said, you would identify with that more. And I feel that like with filmmaking as well. When I see a really cool film and then I found out that like, oh wow, they like barely had anyone to do that. And like the film feels rough around the edges, but it feels like handmade, and it feels like someone's properly made it. You know? Like that always speaks to me personally more than something that looks really shiny, and it might be their first time, but they had £100 million to make it, and I'm like, well, it's not quite the same as a first time filmmaker that's made it for like no money and stuff. So yeah, it's still kind of like prevalent now, but it's just you don't have that space like a TV channel or anything. It's just like lost in the YouTube universe.
The void of social media and YouTube,
exactly.
and like all of that. But no, it's really nice it was really lovely to see that kind of, like you said, they could identify it with the people on P-Rock more.
And I think that's like for both of the films, again, it's something that I really want. Like, I think I kind of make films like for, or not for audiences, but I guess like I do have a thing where I'd like to inspire someone that watches it. So even if you don't care about boxing, you don't care about punk music, there's still something that you as an individual could take away from the film. And I think that is something that I'm very much like, I do love a bit of like schmaltzy filmmaking in that way. And like, so I definitely like inject that into my films, in the sense that I would like someone to be able to enjoy it, even if they're not that invested in the general subject matter of the films.
Yeah. And that is really prevalent throughout like both of them, for sure. And because I didn't really know much about punk.
I remember there was one screening actually, Russell in the film, he's a plumber now, and we did a screening to just like 40 plumbers that didn't know anything about punk music, but they all seemed to enjoy it, and I was like, okay, good, because I was like, this will be a real test like of the movie.
It was great. And like, again, I love the fact that you've done things like that too. Like I remember you said that for Bam Bam you screened it to female boxers as well.
So we did like a pop-up cinema in a boxing ring, and it was quite cool. Like they were all sat in the ring watching the movie.
And again with like the relatability aspect, like I mean, again, not to give too many spoilers, but there are some hurdles that female boxers especially have to go over. And so these women watching this documentary probably really did feel quite seen. So
no, it was cool, and there was a lot of like kids there as well. I remember like really young little female boxers, and they were like really enjoying it as well and things. So it was great. Yeah, they were very sweet screenings, and I think that's the thing that. And we did a similar thing with P-Rock. So we took the film into music venues and did pop-up cinemas, and I think there's a corporate world to filmmaking. There's a less corporate money-making world to filmmaking. And the way that you distribute a film in the more corporate world is you take it to a film festival that puts it in front of investors and they buy the film, they put it on Netflix, blah, blah, blah. And where the other way is that you get your film in front of the people that care about it. And that is what like doing a pop-up boxing gym cinema is, and doing a pop-up one for P-Rock fans. Like you're getting the film in front of the people that genuinely want to watch it, not the people that are just going to think, oh, is this going to make me money, so I will buy it. And there's nothing wrong with that world, but it's much harder in that world, especially if you are making something like me where you kind of are making it to connect with people. And I don't know if it would connect to a money-making person in the same way it would connect to someone that just wants to enjoy the movie. And that's why I like the whole kind of realm of self-distribution is really interesting within filmmaking. And I think actually it's having a real surgence at the moment. There are a lot of filmmakers that are doing that route now, of the more experimental ways of getting people to watch your films.
Interesting.
Because it is so hard to get on the Netflixes and all of the world and all this kind of thing. And obviously they're a great platform if you can get on them, but not every film's going to. So you either give up or you find another way. And I think that's what filmmakers are starting to do.
People are finding another way to do it.
Yeah, exactly.
Where there's a will, there's a way.
Exactly. Whereas like you've put so much effort into making the film, it's like someone's got to watch it. So that's why they're trying to figure out that now.
No, but I think it's good, and well, very, very creative as well. But like you said, I mean, it's important for it to reach audiences that, well, obviously everyone can resonate with it, but that would really connect with it on a deeper level too.
And then
just
because
making it more accessible to people.
Exactly, and because they already invested in it a little bit because they like the punk music or whatever, then it's word of mouth that they might recommend it to someone that has no clue about any of it and doesn't care, but they're like, oh, but I think there'll be this thing in it that you really like, and then you're sort of just going off of that, really, people that are excited about it, and then you hope that they will then tell other people about it.
No, definitely. There's one question that I have for you though about P-Rock, which I was like really curious about when I was watching it, because you have the perspectives of so many people. How do you balance the vision that you had for the documentary with what's revealed from the unpredictable nature of human beings, that they might kind of say something that completely wasn't in your like realm of just view, essentially? How do you balance that to make sure that the narrative is an authentic reflection of everybody's views?
I mean, it's tricky. I mean, really with P-Rock, it was everybody said quite similar things to each other, so you didn't feel like, and I made sure that once the film was edited, we sent it to everyone to be like, are you happy with how you're represented in it? Because I think that's very important in documentary, is like you could be so you can edit things in ways that just really don't make them sound like what the person originally intended. And obviously there's nothing like bad or spiteful in the film, but still I just think, are you happy with what you've said in this, and sign off on it and stuff like that. So we did do that to make sure that people felt like they were represented and said what they wanted to say. I think because I'd done the pre-interviews, my questions were reasonably leading, in the sense of like, people would already know what they discussed with me. I already know what they said in those research interviews. So the questions were very much sort of highlighting the things that I found interesting in the research interviews. And that's why research interviews, if you can have the time, they are really important to do before you do that kind of thing. I mean, I did another documentary about spiking in nightclubs. And there was things in that where people said things that I wasn't expecting, and trying to find a visual way of showing that isn't too exploitative or too dramatic. I remember that one was like a difficult one, and we ended up doing like an interpretive dance thing in order to...
I did not expect you to say that.
Yeah, it was like, so basically it was like they talked about staring and they talked about touching, and it was like we ended up having a dancer sort of do these moves, and a light was to like signify the stares. So if the light was right in their eyes, they were being stared at, or if the light was on their arm, they were being touched on their arm.
That's fascinating.
Yeah, so it was like trying to figure out an artistic way to show all these things that people were talking about, and still have like the narrative and things, so it doesn't feel like you're just listing things. So maybe on that particular film I felt more of that, where you really had to juggle like what you think the arc of the film should be, and how to like some of the things that you weren't expecting people to say, and how you visually show them, because you didn't have a plan really to show that in a particular way or something. But yeah, I think research interviews do help a lot. And I remember with Bam Bam, it's like, obviously I knew a lot of the story of what my mum said and things, and there's still things like that we didn't include, and we didn't have visual representation for all of them. Like I remember she said something about getting her shorts, and I was like, that's a really cool concept, but like I have absolutely no footage or anything. Like I was like, I could do some close-ups of her shorts, but that feels really random to cut to, and there's things like that. And I was like, okay, I'm just going to put it in there, and we're not going to cut to the shorts or anything. She's just going to talk about it, and then it kind of worked. But again, there's like things where you have to sort of make those artistic decisions of how you show the audience and tell something, because sometimes with documentary as well, is if you have someone speaking about something and a totally different image on top, then one of those things don't fully go in. But I was just like, well, it's only shorts, so it's fine if like people don't really register what she's saying about them or something.
They had your nickname on it.
They did, yeah. Lulu. So yeah, there's all things like that. It's tricky, and I think you have a real responsibility as a documentary filmmaker to be authentic and make sure that you're telling someone else's story the way that they want it to be told, but still in a way that's an engaging film, and sort of saying to them like, I know I've done this, and like we can have a talk about it if you're genuinely uncomfortable about it, but like in order to properly represent you, I think we have to have this and all this kind of thing.
So it's like a two-way dialogue, really.
Yeah, that's what I think it should be. Some filmmakers don't. There are documentary filmmakers that think like in order to be totally fly on the wall, it needs to be a totally separate perspective to what the individual who's in the film is. And I do think that can work. It depends, but I think for the nature of the films that I make, I don't think that would ever work really. It has to be a collaborative process with the contributors of the documentary. So
and I think that definitely that community aspect is represented in what you made as well. I have a few more questions for you. I'd really like to ask your perspective on like, how do you see AI impacting the film industry? Because I know that for, not necessarily for films, but for commercials, I know that full commercials have been like produced and released that completely using AI, and some of them have gone viral and that kind of thing. How do you think it's affecting the film industry, or will do in the future? Yeah,
I mean, I think it's starting to really affect the film industry. I mean, literally last week, two major things came out where I was like, oh God. Like, where like one of the huge companies has basically let go of a whole department and replaced them with AI. Like 1,000 jobs gone.
Seriously?
Yeah, like it's really, I think, I don't know how long ago we had our initial call, but like since
like,
that, like so much, I think
a month ago.
Yeah, I think back then I was like, oh, I don't know. and now like there's like things coming out. I'm like, oh God. It's
happening.
Yeah, it's happening very quickly now. And there's like another film that's Cannes Film Festival this week, which is like the big film festival to sell your film at. That's like totally AI.
Everything.
Like, apart from the actors, the costumes, I think that's it. So all the sets, and they're doing something where they flat light them, so they're just totally lit flat, and then they're going to light them in post using AI. So if you want the lighting to be more dramatic, the AI will do that. And as my partner is a lighting technician, that's very bad.
That's very scary.
So it was literally just like the camera operator. I'm all right. So the camera operator was still there, luckily. But like everybody else, props, like costume, like they would all be gone if that became the norm. I just think it's definitely evolving, and I find it interesting, there's actors starting to talk about how like, oh, we just have to give in to it and all this kind of thing, and I'm like, well, I was like, yeah, well, you'll still be paid if you pay if you give your likeness to AI or something, they'll probably pay you for that. But like a production designer, that's then gone. They can't give their like production design knowledge to AI for money. Like,
yeah, AI will just do it.
Yeah, AI will just do it. I mean, it's just like, I think it's just something that like you have to really resist. And again, I think that's where it comes back to the mistakes of film, which actually gives it its humanity.
Yes.
That AI will never be able to do.
That's a really good way to put it. That it gives it its humanity.
And it's like things not going right and adapting to something new is what's going to make films feel different to any kind of AI film that could be made, because it will be so shiny for so long. I bet in like 20 years time you could probably teach AI to be a bit scrappier or whatever it might be, but like, the films that are truly handcrafted, like I don't feel like stop motion, you could totally AI a stop motion film, but I think people, they love the story behind stop motion, that it's like handmade, hand moved. It's like
there's so much time that goes into it.
Yeah, and I don't think
intention.
People will be invested if they just know that something's been AI'd to look like
and
stop
it was
motion.
Generated in like an hour.
Yeah, exactly. Well, weirdly, I think if it's not a craft that you've known is handcrafted, I don't think a general audience will really care. So it's like, it's really starting to get people to like care about the practicalities of filmmaking, and I think that's what's quite interesting. In like when you do talk about Star Wars and they were animatronics on set, and weirdly that's where I think like behind the scenes will become more important, because you have to get an audience invested in the authenticity of the making of the movie. I think that's what will help kill AI, because if people don't care maybe about how it was made as much, then people will just go and watch an AI movie. Where if you make people care about the way that it was made, then they're more likely to watch the non-AI movie, I think.
So do you think that, so you mentioned that you think that that would kind of, what's the word? That would like kind of boost behind the scenes, like boost the visibility of behind the scenes.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, it's like a role that also could totally go away as well. But I honestly think that the only way we're going to beat AI is like, it's by getting people invested in the way a film has been made, and then the behind the scenes is the thing that will show that. It's like there's a new film, Hail Mary, that's just come out, and there's a huge marketing BTS thing about the fact that the little alien in it was mostly a real puppet with puppeteers and things.
That's so cool.
And like that's the main thing that's being circulated around about that film. And again, it's like that, and a lot of the sets were built practically, all that kind of thing. They're really kind of using the practicality of the filmmaking as like a selling point for the movie. And I feel like that's it. And there's a filmmaker that I love called Mark Jenkins, and he makes everything on like a 1960s hand cranked 16mm Bolex. Yeah,
I saw part of his Bait.
Yeah,
and I've never seen anything like it.
Yeah, it's crazy. Like the way that he makes films is totally mad.
It's like, it's so, there's like two sides to it, because like obviously the actual like film, like you said, is like that 1960s like kind of vibe, and then you just see like a MacBook on the screen.
Yeah.
It's just like, wait,
Yeah.
this feels very misplaced, but
Yeah.
then also like it's very like creative.
And then again, if you like listen into like how he made it, like it's because that's where he is in Cornwall. That's what it's like there. Is everything does look like it's from the 60s, like,
Yeah.
but then someone will have an iPhone. Someone will have like, and it's because like there's a lot of the buildings there are still the old buildings and things like that. And I think that's like, again, goes the author's authenticity into like, not only has he made it in this way, but it's representative of the place he grew up in and what it's still like to this day.
The nostalgia of it.
Yeah. And it's like, yeah, and I think that hand process for like all the, you know, the grain and the tactile nature of how it looks, like that's just something that I think it feels very human and human made.
Yeah, no, for sure. But then also like, I feel like any creative, like because we're humans and every human has like an essence, a personality, like all of that kind of stuff. If filmmaking was totally taken over by AI, those injections of personality that kind of emanate from whether it's the actors or like the director with the vision or like whatever, where would they go?
Yeah.
Like, can AI truly replicate the hundreds of people involved in filmmaking and their kind of unique contributions as human beings? Wouldn't it just feel flat? And I don't know the answer to that.
Yeah.
But
and I think it's an interesting thing, even pre-AI becoming something that could change the film industry so much. We were in like, in my personal opinion, a realm of everything starting to feel a little bit too the same.
Yes.
Anyway,
there's always
because
a formula
of the humans.
to rom-coms.
Yeah, exactly. And like, you know, and all everything being a remake and everything being like an original based on another IP. You know, like the Barbie movie is obviously great and all these movies are great, but they're all established names that you've then made a good movie out of. But like that kind of like pure originality was very much lacking in filmmaking for a while.
And what do you think is like the answer to that? Like the thing that can not reverse it, but combat that?
I mean, I think. I mean, the difficult answer is, I mean, really, it should just be the big money people should just invest some money in some, like, maybe smaller budgets in something a little bit more original, you know, and take that chance that it might not make that money back. But really, it also takes audiences going out and, like, watching the film that they don't really know anything about. It's sort of like both those things. And there used to be a lot more of that. I think cinema is expensive to go to now. There's lots of things have changed over the years. But if you look at like early 2000s, people went to the cinema to watch things they'd never heard of all the time. You know, maybe it had a really good trailer and that was like enough. It didn't need to be a sequel to something or something like that, where like you can look at a cinema listing now of films to go to and like sometimes the only thing you have to pick from is a sequel to something. So it's sort of like, sadly, like the whole landscape of film has changed a lot from that early time. So it just, but then actually talking about Hail Mary that I said earlier, like that's been like the biggest like box office success for an original film in a while. I mean, it's based on a book, but it isn't based on another movie or like a known IP in any way. And that's done very well. And then that will have an effect that the money people will then be like, oh, okay, well, maybe it's less of a risk now funding something that isn't based on something else.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's not going to take one thing. It's going to take a lot of things all sort of falling into place for like the industry to plateau into like, because you don't want like, you know, a Marvel movie's still great and you might want to go and see Spider-Man. Spider-Man movies are very cool and stuff. So you don't want them to go away, but it's just about an equal footing of something original and something that you already know a little bit about or something.
And more kind of, I guess, perspectives of more like independent filmmakers and stuff like that.
I think so. Like, I think A24, which is a production company, have a very good framework for like funding independent cinema, and you just need a few more companies like that kind of want to do
perspectives.
it. Yeah,
I love that. I'd really like to know, like, obviously you started out in the film industry very young, and now you teach people.
Yeah.
What advice do you give to your students? Like, what would be maybe the top piece of advice that you would give to somebody starting out in the film industry today?
I would say, like, today, like I was sort of saying when I went into it, is there wasn't an awareness of what the industry is, and the students now are so aware of like the different roles, at least the ones I talk to, of what they want to do, all this kind of thing, and almost a pressure to know what they want to do before they even start in the film industry. And I think it's like, I would just say like, it's okay as well to like go and get a job somewhere else in like a coffee shop and then just make some films with your friends while you figure out exactly what you want to do. Because even if on paper you've read that you want to do this role, in practice it can feel very different. And I don't think if I would have gone straight into being a camera assistant, I don't think I would have done as well in it. I think it would have been too much stress too soon. Where like being a runner and a much more like lower down role, well, it's not lower down role. It's just a very different entry level role in a different department, but a department, like I said, that allows you to kind of watch everything. I think that's better to help you figure out what role you might want to do within film. And also like not working on a film and making films isn't quite the same thing. So
how so?
In the fact that you have a job to do on making a film. No, you have a job to do when you're working on someone else's film. So there is a kind of thing that you can watch and you can ask questions and things, but the main thing you have to remember is you have a job and you're being paid most likely to do that job. Where making films, I mean, it's a creative process. You're making something together. The whole point is you kind of, there is the hierarchy, but like it's your project and things like that. And I think sadly I don't want to crush students' dream, but you can't go onto a set as a runner on your first day and start pitching your script to someone that you've just met. Like, you can definitely do that. Like, and I did it after a couple of years, and I had a relationship with that person I worked with, and then I started talking to them about my things. But like on a professional set, a lot of people are just, they're there to do their job. You're there to do your job, and that's what you sort of have to remember. Where actually maybe like making films with friends, going to fun events to do with filmmaking can be a better way. If you genuinely think I just want to do the creative aspect, that can be a better way to learn about it. Because I think the first few years that I did it, working on films, it was great, and I loved it because like from my Harrods days, I loved working and I loved being in a team. But for the first time I was there, I was so focused on doing a good job. I didn't intake any of the creative film making process that was going on in front of me with my higher ups and things like that. And I think if I did and I tried to sit back and like learn what they were doing, I would totally forget all the jobs that I had to do and was being paid to do while I was there. So I think that's the thing, is it's like just knowing that as much as the film industry is a cool place to be in, and eventually you will learn your craft from it, the first few years it is a high stress job and you will just need to focus on doing that. But that's also why it's fine that you can totally learn how to make films by just making them as well. You don't learn to make films by working on other people's big productions and stuff. So I think that's what I would say is like, if you just want to learn how to creatively make films, you're probably just better off just making them in your own time on your iPhone and editing them and things. Where if you kind of want to experience a big set just for the experience of it, then go off and do that and earn some money, and all that is obviously great as well. Then go and do that. But like, you do find a lot of the people like that do that, like my students and even people my age when I started off, we all got like swept away by the amazing industry, and then we were like, oh yeah, wait, we wanted to make films and then we had to like step back and like take time off and be like, right, okay, it's time to make our stuff now, because we've had no time to do
and actually dive into the creative process.
Yeah, exactly. So that's probably what I would say is like, if you want to make films, just make them. You know, it doesn't need to be serious, it can be with your friends, but it's also very cool if you do manage to get on a set, like just go there, work really hard, and then eventually you might be able to turn that into something else cool. Yeah.
That's really, really, that's really good advice. And if you could give yourself advice, like young Alex, what would it be throughout this whole journey that you've been on?
I would probably say, what would I say to young Alex? Yeah, I think I would say it would be similar what I would say to my students, to be honest, is like, don't lose why you wanted to go into this industry, was to be creative, and don't have so much of your self-worth on the big movies that you have worked on, because it's very cool, and I obviously don't regret it, and it's very cool that I worked on those big movies, but it's like my little things that I've done, you know, again, I shouldn't diminish them because I call them little, but like they're very
like big things.
Yeah, they're cool. Like what I managed to do on
Yeah.
my own and stuff. And just because the British Film Institute or Netflix didn't do this and that for me, like it doesn't diminish any of those things that I've done. And yeah, so I think I tell Alex, don't get so swept in the big names and like what everybody else is doing, and just like focus on what you want to do and what makes you happy within filmmaking. Yeah.
I think that's really a lesson for all of us
Yeah.
as well, like in all areas of life. I feel like, number one, people are always so focused on the destination and the label or that kind of thing, like you said, the big names, that it's so easy to get lost in the process of trying to grasp that. But then once you're there, it's like if that was your goal, just to have the name or that sort of thing, and once you're there, it might not give you the satisfaction that you thought it would. I think you've got to really enjoy, I know it's so cliche to say you must enjoy the journey, not the destination, but I do think it's true. Like, I think you've got to hold on to something more than just the title, because that won't sustain you. So yeah, I think it's a lesson for all of us in like any area of life as well. And that leads me on to my next question. What does success look like to you?
I think being like happy with a thing that I've made. Well, I think the teaching has made me realise that like filmmaking being collaborative, like I think I want success to me be doing what I want whilst also still giving back to other people who want to make films as well. So whether that's like young students or just trying to help people in general, I think because I went into it because of the collaboration, I think when you do get tired and you know the big sets get overwhelming, you become quite insular and cynical, like and you sort of like you know, and you complain about everything a lot and things like that. And I think that's what, when you come out of that and you're back in like, oh, it's fun filmmaking, you realise like I think some of that is because all of it becomes quite insular. And I know that with a lot of other careers as well, as you get very like stuck in what you need to do to get through the day and to get the next job and things like that. And filmmaking is collaborative. So I think success to me is like making my own stuff that is enough for me to survive, not make a lot of money, but like survive financially, whilst also doing the teaching and sort of giving back to the next generation to sort of help them find their voices within filmmaking. So I think that's what, like when we're talking about new voices and all that kind of thing, I think that's what's lacking is like people's different perspectives and like trying to figure out ways of making film feel like a less overwhelming thing to get into. Because like when we talk about the massive crews, and I love that makes it feel unattainable. That you need 1,000 people, you know, to help you make a movie, where then you look at Mark Jenkins and he had like 5, you know, so it's like kind of educating people on like you can do this on not a lot of stuff and you could still make a great film, you know, and it's okay that you don't have 1,000 people working for you, kind of thing. So I think that would be what success is for me.
I love that. And I love that teaching helped you to realize that too. I think it was because I was like I remember doing a year of teaching where I was a little bit cynical about film and stuff, and I was like, but like what would I want to tell them? Because I think it also wasn't a lie what I was saying to them, that like it is hard and like, but also maybe just ignore that part of the industry and like just go towards this part of the industry. And then actually by figuring that out to tell them, I figured that out for myself. For yourself. Yeah.
So
that's so beautiful. It's like a full circle. It's like a full circle moment as well, because you were in that position. Like you were the student. And now,
that's the thing. The teaching I do is the course.
The same thing.
It's the course that I did. So
it is properly full circle. No, that's really, really beautiful. And then my last question for you is, what has failure taught you that success never could?
What's failure? They were still worth it equally as much as the success, you know, because I think is, like we've said, it's about the journey. And although if the end goal didn't quite figure out in the same way that you thought it was going to be, and maybe on paper might look like a failure to someone else, doesn't mean it needs to be a failure to you, you know. I think failure is about perspective. And I think that's what it kind of taught me, is if you can have a different perspective on failure, then you can probably reprogram yourself to have a different perspective on lots of different things.
Yes.
That can then help you as a person get through all sorts of different things. So I think that's what failure kind of taught me more than success. Yeah.
And another one which I've just thought of, and then we will stop.
Yeah.
What has the film industry taught you about life in general?
Definitely not to take everything so seriously. Like, I mean, I think that's like, again, it's like, I don't want to say it in a way that diminishes anyone's jobs or anything like that, but it's so amazingly stupid what we do in film. Like, and you should love that about it. The fact that we just get to go to work and just be silly, like really, like when it's a good day, that's what you do. And I think that is what it's taught me in life in general. Is like, oh, you know, this thing is late, or this, you know, or my train's late, or anything like that, and you're just like, oh, but you know, you just have to ground yourself back into like, but everything's fine, you know. And that's what, and I've had it, like people have probably seen me get incredibly overwhelmed and angry on a set over something that's so stupid. Like, I remember getting really annoyed about TikTok once because it was just like all encompassing of my day to get this TikTok, and then it just like didn't happen in the way that I thought, and I was so like annoyed by it. And then you step out of it the next day and you're like, why wasn't it? It's just a TikTok. But then that's, you know, obviously that is your job, and it kind of like the film industry has given me the skill to sort of step back and really be like, is this as important as I'm making it? Because you know, because maybe it isn't, and then it helps you to evaluate, and then maybe it is, and that's good, but at least you're giving yourself that
the space and time to like evaluate, is it just like a little thing, or is it
exactly,
to be able to differentiate. I love that. Thank you so much, Alex.
Yeah, no worries. Thanks for having me.
For coming on the podcast. I really, really appreciate it. It's been so lovely to have you on and learn more about the film industry. And thank you so much for your insights.
No, thanks for having me. Hopefully it was interesting.
You were very, very interesting and engaging.
Good.
No, thank you so much. It's been really insightful. So yeah, really appreciate it.
Cool.
Thank you.
Do we clap? No.
And to
oh, sorry. Do you have like an outro? I clap.
I don't have an outro.
Okay, cool.
It's okay. It's just to say thank you so much. Sorry, I can't. Just give me a second. Thank you so much for everyone that's watched and listened, and we will see you next time.